Comparison price for Monday, May 11th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. That's simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Sakaris with Blake Price, Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things with Elijah Ford. We got a big show coming up for you on this Monday on a week. Needless to say, where the Vancouver Canucks franchise is going to set off in a new direction, no matter which way this goes. And I can't imagine it's longer than this week. We said this last Monday, but things are getting down to the nitty-gritty. They're going to chart a new course here, Blake, with a new managerial group. And today we get word that that new managerial group is going to include arguably the two best players in franchise history, Henrik and Daniel Sedin.
And it likely now, no details on this yet, but the vibes are that when we say new managerial group, we mean pretty much in totality.
Quite a big one, yeah. We'll get into that in our top story, but when we set off on this process a month ago, it was a GM search. It does, we know now, things have changed.
Yeah.
We'll get into that explanation in a moment. So let's start with our daily poll question. Evan Gould has not yet been hired yet, but all signs are pointing towards the Boston assistant general manager getting a gig here in Vancouver. Evan Gould, supported by the Sedins in a new Canucks front office. Would you approve? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. Mr. Price, first take.
I mean, it's got a lot of the great ingredients, right? The only thing that is a red flag here at all is experience in the job. And has Evan Gould served a long enough apprenticeship as an AGM that he gets it and he can jump into the role rather effortlessly? If he doesn't have it, and we're still getting some word of this, like if Ryan Johnson is still in the mix and is a part of the greater group, does that help ease sort of that transition? Like, to me, that's the super team. If you tell me they're coming back with Evan Gould and Ryan Johnson and the Sedin twins, I think they've covered their ass a lot. If it's just, and it's stronger evidence right now that it's just Gould and the twins, it's good. I mean, I'm not downplaying it, but I feel you are exposing yourself a little bit on being able to hit the ground running with institutional knowledge and just time.
Well, the
in the
Sedins
big
bring
chair.
that, right? The institutional knowledge.
Not the managerial, not in the office.
Well, the Sedins know the owner and the president, which I believe
That's part
is
of
the
it.
important
That's the tool they will be used.
Knowledge, and particularly if they can serve as buffer between the business people and the hockey people in this organization. So you voted yes or you voted no?
I voted yes.
Yeah. I'm voting yes as well. For starters, at the outset of this process, I said I was more intrigued by the younger first-time general manager candidates than I was by the old guard. And I said that in part because look at who has won the Stanley Cups of late. It has been younger first-time general managers, whether that's Bill Zito in Florida, whether that's Julian Brisebois in Tampa, Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland in Colorado, even Kelly McCrimmon, who, and Joe and Kelly certainly are from an older boys hockey network, but of course did not hold NHL general managers chairs when their teams won the Stanley Cup. I wanted someone with a business background and an academic leaning. I say that because that's what I perceive the job to be in this day and age. I think there was a time when it was just hire the best scout you could. But needless to say, running an NHL front office now has become far more complicated than it used to be. It's the salary cap, it's contract negotiations, it's roster and organization building, it's people managing, it's data and analytics. And so I wanted somebody with that skill set. Evan Gould looks to me like he checks just about every box there. I mentioned last week I know someone in the NHL who has known Evan for a long time and has watched his ascension over nearly 20 years here. That's the other thing we should say is while he is relatively inexperienced in an AGM role, but has still served 6 years there with Boston, I mean, his background in the National Hockey League goes back 20 years. I mean, 11 with the Bruins, 9 with the Capitals. So he has served in 8+ with the Capitals. He has served, in my view, an appropriate apprenticeship. Nearly 2 decades here. So really go back to the advent of the salary cap. That's when he came in, right? Shortly after the 04-05 lockout. And I think getting supported by the Sedin twins makes an awful lot of sense. Henrik and Daniel are both very intelligent people, but even beyond that, they're teaming with character and integrity. And those are two things that have been lost by the Canucks organization that you need to recapture. The other thing we know about the twins, there's not a lot of ego there. So I don't perceive any kind of issues with power. I think they're very opinionated. They're far more opinionated than you may realize, having listened to them over the years as hockey players in the dressing room where they often played politics. But I think that exchange of raw opinions, and you and I have had a chance to talk to Hank and Danny in the past where they've dropped some pretty strong opinions on us, I think should make for good decision making.
I am worried, though, Matt. I am worried, if they're managing up, if they are the deflector shield from the owner, like, is it just that their presence will prevent the owner from even inquiring?
No.
Or are you telling me that the Sedin twins are going to talk sternly to the owner and say, no, don't worry, we've got this handled. You can stop calling every day.
I think the Sedin twins
I can't
will
picture
probably be the explainers to the owner. I would like to think the Sedin twins will be the guys talking the owner off certain things and explaining to the owner why, alongside Gould.
See, I can picture Jim Rutherford calling up and saying, listen, Francesco, we know what we're doing here, blah, blah, here. I can't picture the twins doing that.
I think Trevor did a lot of it. I think Trevor started to tire of it. I do wonder about how the twins will hold up over time if that's what they're tasked with doing.
But Trevor can speak politically. We know that. Trevor's a slick guy. I don't know that the Sedins will suffer fools as well, and I just wonder about their frustration with that being the deflector shields. That's all.
That's if they are. We'll see.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is, believe it or not, I think the Vancouver Canucks demonstrate a lot of good process in this search. I know there was some consternation about multiple lists. I did not share that consternation if multiple lists were coming from good places. Basically, the long list, the big think, every idea, no bad ideas, put it all out on the table. Needless to say, I know Canucks fans are concerned that Francesco Aquilini and Michael Doyle were 2/3 of the search process with Jim Rutherford. It's well-founded with the owner. It's good skepticism with regards to the club's business president and in Doyle. But they did have Rutherford in the room, and we're also told they had other Aquilinis in the room. And boy, I could see if Evan Gould is everything that he has been made out to be to me from people who know him, I could see him resonating a whole lot with Roberto Aquilini, Francesco's brother, who is more of a business mindset and less of a hockey. Not to mention Dax Aquilini, if he continues to grow within the organization with the idea that one day he will take over the family business here. They interviewed 18+ people, whatever it was. They got down to their short list, and they looked outside the organization. It was not just a big gather counterintelligence to get back to the in-house guy in Ryan Johnson. It was open-minded, and we are willing to go down a road of an impressive candidate. And it sounds like Evan Gould is that impressive candidate.
I think they read the room, the Canucks did. And give them some credit for this. Knowing that there would be a revolution unlike they have ever seen if they went about things the old ways. Conducting 12-hour searches and going to old guard guys. Like, I think they did read, and maybe that's Dax that's managing up at that point, going, guys, they're going to be serious.
No to Pierre Dorion. No,
Yes.
Don't elevate talent simply because he's already in the organization. We'll do it for cheap.
Like, consumer confidence is down, and you know, I'm not going to say the Canucks Clay story reached the ears of Francesco, but the warnings of those kinds of displays probably did go up the chain a little bit.
Oh, I think there were a lot of sponsors and a lot of people who buy suites and expensive tickets who made their feelings known to Canucks Sports Entertainment that you've got to get this right, that we're tired of the same old, same old. This cannot be the owner's toy. It has to be managed more dutifully with greater respect and recognition that it's a community asset and you were simply temporary stewards at some point to hand it off to another rich person. As for Gould, we went through some of this on Friday's program, but 11 years in Boston, began as their director of legal affairs in 2015, moved up to AGM in the 2019-2020 season, has been running the AHL Providence Bruins since 2023. As his bio on the club's website writes, in those positions, he advises and assists General Manager Don Sweeney with the day-to-day hockey operation tasks, including salary cap analysis, contract negotiations, roster planning, player salary arbitration, CBA compliance, and pro scouting. He also assists in the oversight of individuals in their specific duties. So he's managed people. He has touched just about all facets of the organization there. And it was 8+ years in Washington as a hockey operations assistant. He did research, salary cap analysis, arbitration research, brief drafting. He has degrees from McGill and the University of Toronto, where he earned a law and MBA degree. So, and knew some people who went to school with him as well, who certainly vouch that it is a smart person who the Canucks are bringing in here. So here's where we got to this. Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts podcast reported that the Canucks had asked the Sedins to take on a larger role. And we found out that the Sedins would be accepting a larger role. Irf Gaffar had that this morning, saying Elliot is right. Daniel and Henrik Sedin were offered larger front office roles with the Canucks and accepted over the weekend. The structure of what they are trying to do is starting to take shape. Later this morning, Elliot Friedman clarified that the Sedins won't be the primary decision makers in their new roles. So we're awaiting structure here and title. I'm not sure what they're going to name Evan Gould, what they're going to name the Sedin twins. Now, getting back to Ryan Johnson for a second. The other finalist in the Canucks GM search, if it is just a GM search. And, of course, an in-house guy who's been around for more than a decade, serving under 3 administrations. The tail end of the Gillis regime, the Lyndon Benning regime, and through the Rutherford Allvin regime, and impressing people at every step along the way. Of course, RJ is a assistant general manager right now by title with the Vancouver Canucks, with oversight running the Abbotsford Canucks AHL team. And the word is they're trying to keep RJ as part of this mix as well. I wonder if that's a mistake. I wonder if you don't clean slate it. I wonder about the dynamic of keeping an old hand on staff to assist and advise somebody he lost the job to. And I think the world of Ryan Johnson, and if there are people and professionals who can carry on in that role without any kind of ill will, negative feelings, put forth their best each and every day. I suspect Ryan Johnson is of the character and integrity to be able to do that. But that also makes me a little bit nervous that Evan Gold is coming here and expected to retain 3 senior members of the existing staff. The
3?
The Twins and RJ.
Oh, well, the Twins aren't part of the management staff, though. They're coaches.
But they've been here forever, right? Like the one thing I learned from talking with, Gillis in particular, but general managers and presidents in other sports and with other NHL franchises is, taking on the legacy guys can be quite helpful in the early going as you're finding your way in new digs, but being forced to keep all the legacy guys and not having the freedom and ability to construct the front office tip to tail as you see fit according to your vision can be hampering.
I would be far more worried about that with old school hockey guys. I think Evan Gold going into his first general manager's gig is going to be eyes wide open and accepting of any and all help. I'm going to guess he comes in like he's not old enough, A, or experienced enough, B, to have, quote unquote, his guys. You hire a 60-year-old guy who's been in the business for 20 years. He's got his guys, and they are way less open to incumbents sticking around. The Sedins, I wouldn't qualify as incumbents at all. They're in their organization, but they are just the Sedins are Sedins. I mean, and they weren't in the front office. They had no decision-making power. They were just on the ice helping young players. To me, those are fresh hires, fresh guys on the job. And as for Ryan Johnson, the only way that it works, and I think his character, as you say, is
impeccable.
Of that I think he would be able to handle the disappointment of not getting the big chair. But I think the only other way that it works is if he's got a fairly large chair. And I think being brought into the full-on National Hockey League team again, primarily he was an Abbey Canucks guy. His title is an AGM of the Vancouver Canucks, but he was primarily the AHL guy. Being into the NHL room now is a step in the right direction. You can fluff up his title a little bit and make it all the more executive. I think he sees this as a decent silver medal victory for himself, and I would guess that he's got a pretty good attitude.
See, that's where I would differ. I would bet that Ryan Johnson thought this was his job, particularly when he had Jim Rutherford in his corner. So that does concern me a little bit.
But at what point was the Jim Rutherford affiliation a detriment? At what point was
apparently towards the end, but that must have been a pretty stark and disappointing realization. And the other thing here is he lost the job to a guy who's been grinding in 2 other organizations and doesn't come from a playing background, right? And that can sometimes be difficult, I suspect, with NHL people as well, because being a great player sometimes gives, or just being a player, period, sometimes gets you entry at lofty positions, like Trevor Linden as president of hockey operations here, like Matt Sundin as whatever his title is with the Leafs, and others who have gotten a chance to not only serve in front offices, but not have to go through 20-year apprenticeships because of their stature as an NHL
I've got
player.
time to hear that Ryan Johnson would be disappointed about this. Obviously, you want the job that you're applying for. I get that.
Yeah.
But I don't have time really to hear that I'm not going to accept any promotion. I'd rather be unemployed than working. Like, it's a very clear
but
rung
Blake,
up the ladder.
if he does not think he can work for this guy because he was the finalist and didn't get the gig, I would prefer Ryan Johnson resign and go find another
Sure,
organization.
if that's his attitude, I would just be disappointed in that attitude.
Well, yeah, okay.
It's just
the other thing is I do think you have to be cognizant that you're hiring Evan Gold to be your chief decision maker, and part of that comes with bringing in some of his most trusted advisors, whether that is Jamie Langenbrunner, the other assistant, or another assistant general manager with the Boston Bruins. There's been some talk of the Bruins director of analytics as well. Like, it's all about making Evan Gold successful now. And it's less about making sure Ryan Johnson's happy or wanting to keep Ryan Johnson because you still believe in him. And don't get me wrong, like I like Ryan. I'd like to think there's a world where they can all play in the same pen and do good work together. But if there's any doubt there, I do think you have to defer to Gould at this stage of the game. And I don't care that he's a younger, he's mid-40s, first-time general manager. I think those are the sorts of accommodations that you make when you hire someone. I think he's got institutional knowledge alongside him in the Sedins. I think that's enough. He's probably going to retain some people on staff anyways, at least in the early going here, because there's not a lot of time before the draft and the new league year. So I think everything you do from this point forward, if Gould is being hired to be the chief hockey decision maker, is about supporting Gould and making sure he has the people around him that he trusts and that he believes in.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't want the guy around, and he made that clear in the interviews, then
that's right. Then that has to be the decision.
His prerogative.
Right.
My point is that from Ryan Johnson's perspective, I would hope that he sees that, like, very few NHL GMs get their first job after being an AGM in charge of the AHL. Like, that's generally regarded as the lowest rung of the AGMs. So that's a big jump to be the AHL AGM guy all the way to the NHL.
It's the lowest rung, but it's the rung where you do actually manage your own team, which you don't do when you're the capologist, which you don't do when you're the director of data or research or analytics.
No, I don't say that. I don't say that
which
because
you don't do when you're the director of player personnel, right? Like running the AHL team for many is the most proximal thing to running an NHL team. There's significant differences.
I'm not diminishing the experience. My point is that if you're Ryan Johnson and his goal is to be an NHL GM in the not too distant future, he's way closer to it, accepting an NHL AGM job than he was in his previous role. He is. He is getting closer to his goal. So if I'm him, I'm happy to take the job.
Yeah. If Gould thinks it's awkward, if he feels like he's being saddled with the finalists, I don't think you can go down that road.
No, we don't know any of that to be true.
No, we don't. We don't. All right, so you can vote. Evan Gould, supported by the Twins. Do you approve? Yes or no at the Securison Price X and YouTube channels. Get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. We have covered some of this, but multiple hires for a new Canucks front office, and maybe as many as 3 if Boston assistant general manager Evan Gould, the reported leading candidate to fill the vacancy left by Patrik Allvin's firing, joins the Sedin twins. Perhaps even more if he brings his own people from Boston. Over the last month, since Allvin's termination, it became clear that Jim Rutherford wasn't for long with the Vancouver Canucks. He was owed $5 million in the final year of his contract, but expressed a desire to step back after the draft. And now we know he'll be moving back to Raleigh and serving as no more than an arm's-length consultant. That pushed the Canucks into rethinking their front office and making multiple hires to fill all of these gaps. Today we get word that Daniel and Henrik Sedin will be elevating from their roles as player development coaches into front office positions. What they are isn't yet clear, nor the titles and structure of who holds final authority on decision-making. But again, Elliot Friedman reporting it will not be the Twins. So it sounds like it will be Evan Gould or Ryan Johnson if there's if the reporting is wrong and Ryan Johnson becomes the guy. What we do know is that there will be changes at the AGM level, perhaps across the board. Irfan Ghaffar saying the AGMs will be completely overhauled, meaning Cami Granato and Emily Castengay look like they're out. That leaves Ryan Johnson, the other AGM, whom the Canucks, I suspect, are trying to convince to say, and stands to get a promotion in the new front office structure. We don't know yet if Johnson wants to stay, but he's under contract, and the NHL teams do reserve the right to keep employees under contract and preventing them from jumping to other teams or even interviewing for other teams, as was reported with the Canucks not allowing Ryan Johnson to interview for the Nashville gig. So while the AGM level is in flux, the bigger decision is who heads up hockey operations. within the new structure, likely Evan Gold, because look, if he's leaving Boston, I suspect he's only doing so to run his own team. Perhaps there's a structure where the Sedins may outrank him, but he effectively runs the team on a day-to-day basis.
As we covered last week, hockey terms are different than regular company terms.
Yes.
In a regular company, a VP would far outrank a GM, but that's not the case in a hockey team.
It's same in football, too, sometimes, right? Where the head coach has final say over the GM. But, well, and that the other thing is, and you brought this up last week when we were talking about Michael Doyle and how do believe that Evan Gold or whomever comes in here will ultimately be reporting to Michael Doyle on the business side of things. I do believe Doyle stands to elevate here as well. But as you point out, I mean, that's if they explain all this, the lines of demarcation, the reporting structure, the organizational hierarchy.
They might like the vagaries. They might like the vagueness.
Yeah, this has not been a strength of Canucks Sports Entertainment in terms of transparency and letting us know who does all the duties and responsibilities. This, of course, became a matter under Rutherford and Allvin, where a lot of people out there, a lot of Canucks fans, thought Allvin was making all the decisions. Well, no. When things got tough for the Canucks, particularly last year after the Miller-Pettersson feud popped in November, Jim Rutherford took full control of the wheel again. He may not have been making the smaller deals, but he was certainly making the bigger deals, and we'll see if the Canucks actually illustrate all of this for us when they announce this new front office, whenever that may be, but likely at some point
It
this
should
week.
also be mentioned that the Canucks were reticent to give any permission for Ryan Johnson to go to the Nashville interviews because he was a candidate here. If it comes to pass here in the next 48, 72 hours that he is no longer a candidate for the straight-up GM job, I would suspect the Canucks will give him the opportunity to try and be a last-second hire here for the Nashville Predators, who have not hired their GM. And by all reporting, which is to say there's not been much reporting on the Pred situation, I don't think they sound like they're close to hiring anybody.
The word I got in Nashville is they got down to like 4 or 5 guys. They brought them to meet minority owner Nick Saban, the famed college football coach. And Coach Saban had an opinion or two on the 4 or 5 guys they brought him, none of whom passed muster for St. Nick.
Bring me 5 more.
I do think Tom Fitzgerald getting fired by the Devils and entering that process late also delayed the Nashville hunt. I would not be surprised if Tom Fitzgerald winds up being the general manager of the Nashville Predators. Played there once upon a time. But yeah, I think things are a little messy in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And it's conceivable, as we know, Ryan Johnson lives in Nashville in the offseason. But what's clear with the Canucks is that Rutherford not wanting to stick around to be ornamental for a new GM. You'll remember that Friday press conference, end-of-season press conference. He said he'd be hiring a GM and then taking a step back and basically no more blurred lines. GM, you run the show. I'll be there to be your counsel. Well, that he is now actually leaving the organization, or at least leaving it from a full-time capacity after the draft, that caused a chain reaction of more changes and an expanded front office. And frankly, for the Vancouver Canucks, good on you that you recognized that and said, okay, it's time to execute a broader plan, as opposed to trying to do it on the cheap, just bring in a general manager and, oh, that's that. You know, we've got our new decision-making boss. Oh, and by the way, he's reporting to Doyle or he's reporting to Francesco without a lot of support around him or inheriting the same front office. So, again, not something we've said a whole lot about the Vancouver Canucks under Aquilini ownership, and certainly not the last 12 years. But I think they've met and retained good process here.
Only took him a dozen years to figure out how to do this.
From the outside looking in, I gotta say, I'm reasonably impressed with the way they have stick-handled all this. And as I mentioned last week, too, a friend in the league who knows Evan Gold and saw the long list of the guys that the Canucks interviewed And he said to me, I know just about every one of those AGMs, some better than others, or front office people, because I guess Shane Doan wasn't technically an AGM. But of all the first-timers, the non-experienced GMs, my friend who's an NHL executive said, I'm not sure any of them are ready, but Evan Gould is the most ready of the unreadies.
And man, the halcyon early days where it looked like Shane Doan was going to be involved here, and now it's
Or Kevin Adams or Pierre Dorion. I mean,
not only is Shane Doan not going to be the GM here, he's not going to be the GM anywhere. It doesn't appear so. He's not even with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Out with
he's
the Leafs now.
Yeah, his contract is expired.
Knew that was happening. That his contract was expired, and the word came some time ago that John Chayka was not going to be keeping him.
Which is funny.
I do wonder if Gillis would have kept him, but John Chayka and Matt Sundin would not be.
Despite the Coyotes connection.
Yeah, fair enough.
Italian families hiring jobs. It's time to talk about the Capo Italian lager, as this hockey team looks for a new capo under the dawn. Neighborhood Brewing has released the
Careful now, you may get a lawyer's letter.
Neighborhood Brewing's released Capo Italian Lager. Capo Italian Lager keeps it cool and collected, crisp, clean, and quietly confident with fresh floral and herbal notes that add just the right amount of swagger. Easy drinking, far from basic. It's the kind of lager that shows sharp and leaves a lasting impression. The Capo Italian Lager.
Yeah, if I'm your consigliere, Fredo has to go fishing right now.
I don't know where you're going with that. I'm lost in the metaphor.
Come on. It's second film. It's brilliant.
I know the film. I don't know the metaphor.
Linus Karlsson makes Sweden's World Hockey Championship team. Liam Öhgren doesn't. And we're going to talk to Uffe Bodin, who is a longtime chronicler of Swedish hockey, later in the program. Quite a feather in the cap for Linus Karlsson, who continues to be this late bloomer and taking more and more steps up the ladder in his hockey life. Looking forward to watching him for Sweden at the World Championships. This guy is going to Fribourg and will be calling a lot of the games in the Swedish pool. So looking forward to your thoughts and impressions and everybody's take on how Linus Karlsson is doing for Team Sweden. Must say, a little surprised that Liam Öhgren did not make the team, particularly since Sweden isn't chock-a-block of NHLers.
Scored a couple goals, too, in the pre.
I mean, typically NHL guys who are willing to play for Sweden at the World Hockey Championships make the team. They certainly make the team when there isn't a fleet of NHL guys who are vying for the team, and that's not the case for Sweden.
If I had handicapped it going in, who's making
I thought Öhgren would be the first of the three Canucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nils Höglander is out, of course, because of injury. 2 draft eligibles make the Swedish senior team, including possible future Vancouver Canuck Ivar Stenberg. More on him as well coming up with Uffe Bodin. Viggo Bjork is the other one, and of course his brother Wilson.
He could be a future Canuck too. A lot would have to happen, but he could be.
His brother Wilson plays in the Canucks organization. Well, he's unsigned now because he's at Colorado College, but he's a Canucks draft pick.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Philip Hronek not only makes Czechia, but he looks to be their best player. I mean, I went up and down the Czechia lineup, and he is the most sung NHL player on that team. Aatu Räty is going to play for Finland, and I think that can only have good benefits for Aatu Räty.
I'm telling you, Matt, like if Canada does not win this World Hockey Championship, something has gone terribly wrong because
Macklin Celebrini will captain the team. He got the seed despite Ryan O'Reilly being there. Some more made veterans of Hockey Canada in the NHL, but it's clear that
most
Hockey
of these
Canada
rosters
wants
are
to turn it over.
Very green. Very Euro.
Quite pedestrian.
Like they are, this is a Olympic hangover World Championships for everybody, but the Canadians.
Mike, can we bring that Swedish roster back up there? I believe you had the visual earlier in the show. Okay, so this is that's the forwards.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Lucas Raymond's a terrific player. Anton Frondell, as we all know, is
a
excellent young prospect. You have other players on that list who are NHL guys. You have other players on that list that are vested European pros. But that roster is a long, long way off from Sweden's best on best.
Yes.
Do you have the defense there as well, Mike? Did I not send you that? I'm not sure if I sent him.
I don't have. I just have the forwards.
Okay. Like I said, the Czech team is chock-a-block of ex-NHLers, guys who played in the NHL at one time but did not play this season. The Swedish defense, okay, OEL is there. Matthias Ekholm is there. But then you're into guys like Eric Brandstrom, right? Robert Hagg, guys who have played in the NHL but aren't exactly tried and true NHL with a
no Marcus Pettersson this year. Marcus Pettersson played this tournament last year but didn't want to play this year.
And the goaltenders as well for Team Sweden. Again, Magnus Hellberg's played in the NHL before. Harenstam, the young goaltender that they're bringing. So, the U.S. team as well has, some good players on it, but, miles from their Olympic team.
It's great for Max Sasson to go, but it says more about the quality of the USA roster than anything, right? And same with Aturatu. These are players that shouldn't be there, given the stakes, but they are. They'll hopefully they make the most of the opportunity.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think the answer, if Sweden was, and Sam Hallam is also coaching this Swedish team. How did he get it? She forgot to ask Uffe that, but how did Coach Hallam
we were done with Sam Hallam
get the job after he botched the Olympics so bad for Sweden? I think the answer to this question would have been an absolute no if we thought Sweden was taking a roster full of NHLers. But, Blake, look, can you bring the forwards back up for a second here, Mike? When you take a look at this forward group, could Elias Pettersson have benefited playing for his country at the World Hockey Championships? And does it bother you that he just didn't want to?
The problem is, of course, he puts himself in the category of all the top flight Swedes.
Like, he's the first-line center on that team, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Like, where maybe you're going to play with Linus, your Canucks countryman. Maybe you play with Lucas Raymond and you get some confidence because you know Raymond's going to score at this tournament. Or maybe you play with a more veteran Swede, right, who is your senior and is...
But him and all of his compatriots are probably all in a little WhatsApp group chat, and they're all like, nah, I'm not going. And then Pettersson's like, well, if they're not going, I'm not going to go.
Well, he once was of that stature. Like, this is about rehabilitating his NHL career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think he recognizes that?
He says it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Brian Burke joined Sirius NHL Radio over the weekend with his 2 cents. Former Canucks GM saying, quote, I would be leery of trading for Pettersson, but I think someone's going to take him. There's 32 teams, and someone makes a mistake every day in our league. Someone's going to bite on EP40, and that's because he's had a couple of great years. He's supposedly a good kid. He works hard. No issues with him character-wise, but he just goes to sleep as a player. Someone will give him a chance, but I wouldn't. I'm not actually sure there aren't any issues character-wise. Work ethic is lacking.
Work ethic.
So he doesn't
work ethic off the ice, yes. But I think
on during his shifts, for the most part, he's a detailed hockey player. He's a smart hockey player. We all know that.
Let me ask you this, because I've had this thought. The team that's been most linked to Elias Pettersson,
Carolina,
is now 8-0 in the playoffs.
Get to that in a sec.
So how does that intersect with this story? Like, if you're hoping for an EP40 trade, does now a crash out of are you hoping for a crash out of the Hurricanes? Or Like I just wonder how this plays out.
Well,
What if they win the
look,
cup?
Of
Like,
course, the Carolina Hurricanes have been here before, and their ceiling has often been the Eastern Conference final. All the conversation about Carolina in the last year plus is that it was missing star power, missing difference makers, missing guys who on one shift could be the difference between losing and winning a hockey game in the postseason, particularly when goals are a little more difficult to come by, when space is a little bit more difficult to come by, and when the margins are so thin between you and your opponent. As you mentioned, Carolina sweeps Philly, now through to the Eastern Conference Final with loads of rest. They are the first team in NHL history to sweep the first two best-of-7 rounds. The best-of-7 through all 4 rounds goes back to the mid-'80s. Nobody has ever started a postseason 8-0 in a best-of-7 world.
if they win the Stanley Cup, they're not trading for Elias Pettersson. If they make the Stanley Cup final, is that enough to tell them, okay, we've got a great core here? We're so close. Like, if you're wanting an EP40 trade, are you hoping they have to crash out in the conference final? Because they'll say...
I think that would be the conventional thinking.
Yeah, I think that tracks.
But I also think Eric Tulsky in that front office is so data-driven that it may not be wise to assume that the conventional thinking applies to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't have a lot of money coming off the books for next year, Blake.
Yeah, they need some help. Is there any help
Now
that can be provided?
Now, the salary cap is going up, and it's going up by a significant amount of money, as we know. And I'm just doing quick math here. The Carolina Hurricanes have something in the order of $92 million committed for next year. We also know the owner is quite, well, if you say budget conscious, it makes him sound cheap. He would argue that every dollar spent has to be purposeful, that he's happy to spend tons of money if he believes the purpose is worthwhile. I don't know if they're going to be a cap team going forward, or if Tulsky is going to have to abide by a budget. I suspect if Dundon is the guy he says he is, and there's been a lot of Chicken Little in Portland of late because of the way he's financed or hasn't financed certain things with the Trailblazers upon taking over. But I suspect if his hockey guys go to him and make the case for Elias Pettersson at 11.6, that gets green lit. I suspect if the hockey guys make a winning case for him with him to spend to the cap limit, then I suspect that's the deal. Pretty much every forward of consequence is coming back or is under contract with Carolina next year, Blake.
Well, I think we know what the key is if you're going to make a Carolina Hurricanes trade for Elias Pettersson, and you are taking back Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
Yep.
That turns
11.7 into
7. Just under 7, in fact.
Yeah.
So you're taking back Kotkaniemi in addition to the prospect or the pick that you really want.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to be maybe you get Nadeau, the former BCHLer, who's 21 now and has been very good since Carolina took him late in the first round that one year. They've drafted very well. Carolina is the one team when you look at their prospect list, you have to go beyond the first rounders because they find guys in the second, third, fourth round. You
wouldn't accept the 2028 first rounder from Dallas that they have, which is that too far in the future for such a big piece?
Well, no, I mean the Canucks, at least under Rutherford, were willing to take on those sorts of picks that were years out, suggesting it is a longer range rebuild. So
that's the extra Carolina pick. So for them, they could just sort of say, "Hey, it's okay. That was extra. We still have our first round pick."
Yep. I suspect Dallas will still be good in a couple of years, but who knows? Anyways, it's a worthwhile shout. Hurricanes allowed 5 goals in 4 games versus Ottawa, and then 5 goals in 4 games against Philly. They're 8-0 with 10 goals against through the playoffs.
And in that regard,
and they're getting saucy on social media too, or not saucy if you're a
yes.
without whiz guy on your Philly cheesesteak, as I am. I must say, and I don't know about you, Blake, is that visually appealing? Like that shade of orange or yellow? I
don't eat dairy
so
or beef anymore. So
disappointed in the Philly cheesesteak when we went to Philly. I had heard so much about the Philly cheesesteak. I had had the cheesesteaks or Philly cheesesteak facsimiles in other cities. We went there to one of the originals. I forget if it was Gino's or Pat's. And I'm like, cheese whiz, are you kidding me? Like, what are we, 4 here? We're eating cheese whiz on steak?
when in Rome.
What adults do this? Anyways, that aside, with the elimination of the Flyers, the highest the Minnesota Wild first-round pick can reach is 23rd overall. Canucks News Summaries had this. This can be achieved if the Ducks make the conference final and the Wild lose to the Avalanche. Yes, we've been talking about how you should be rooting for the Colorado Avalanche because you need Minnesota eliminated in this round.
Mm-hmm.
If Minnesota is not eliminated in this round, then their pick can be no better than 28th, which would be a loser in the conference finals. It's a little bit different this year because the Senators are locked in at 32, so your cup champion is 31, your runner-up is 30, and then the lesser of your two conference finalists picks 28. If Minnesota is eliminated in this round, then they get thrown into the pool with all the other first and second round losers. So you're rooting Anaheim, you're rooting Colorado.
That
for
feels
the
like a
sake
big
of that
swing.
Canucks
23rd to 28th is fairly significant.
and honestly, in this year's draft, Blake, and I would defer to the Cam Robinsons and the Stephen Ellises of the world, and we're going to have more draft people coming up on the show this week and all the way through until June to tell us even more. But I was looking at multiple publicly available lists this weekend, and I'm like, okay, I think you feel good between like 20 and 25 players in the first round. And obviously there are tiers within there.
There are bins to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
There are certainly tiers within that. But I think you can get up to about 25 players in this first round that I think you would feel pretty good about.
And you don't want to be at the bottom of that tier. So you want to
Right.
reach up as high as you can. Hey, Ducks have a chance.
Oh, for sure. Carolina waits the Buffalo-Montreal winner, where the Habs take a 2-1 lead behind former BCHLer Alex Newhook from St. John's, Newfoundland to the Victoria Grizzlies. 2 goals for a second consecutive game for young Newhook. And, of course, tons of Habs fans on Newfoundland going way back to Solitudes, but also farm team considerations way back. They love Michael Ryder as well on Newfoundland, former Hab. And then in the West, as you mentioned, you've got Anaheim drawing even with Vegas, now 2-2 in the Pacific Division. Colorado is up 2-1 on Minnesota with Game 3 going tonight. How many days rest is Carolina going to get here, Blake? It's extraordinary.
If these series go deep,
Because
my
remember,
goodness.
that series started while the Game 7 of the first round was going down. So they not only started early, they're finished early again.
And the NHL has shown themselves willing to do this in the second round, have that overlap. I don't think they're willing to do that when you're down to the final four. They're going to want everything tickety-boo.
Blake, they may not have a choice here. Buffalo, Montreal could go 6-7 games and forget about it. Then you're starting whenever the series is over. Have no opportunity to start it early. Mike, can we hop back to the kids here now for a second? Braden Coots and the Prince Albert Raiders. Coots picked up a goal and an assist as PA took Game 1 of the WHL final versus Everett for 2. He had an assist in Game 2, but Everett won that contest, so it's a series tied 1-1 heading into Game 3 tomorrow in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And then the other Canucks draft pick who's involved in the CHL playoffs, who's still alive, and boy was he involved, Gabe Sherratt. You'll see him here. He jams home a loose puck for the game-winning goal. He's got goals in back-to-back games. The Kitchener Rangers own a stranglehold 3-0 series lead over Barrie in the OHL Championship. So they are one win away from qualifying for the Memorial Cup in Kelowna, in which case Canucks prospect Gabe Sherratt will be playing right here within the borders of British Columbia for our national championship. And perhaps against Braden Coots as well if PA is able to win that series.
That's pretty tough to do at the CHL League final stage. Like, consummate a sweep. Like, if they
It sure is.
Like, you don't see that much.
Yeah, and of course, we already know Parker Alkos, Canucks draft pick, who is a member of the Kelowna Rockets, and the home team gets
automatic
a charity berth into our national Final Four. Then there's draft prospects. Crystal McKenna's in some trouble now.
Oh,
Gavin, no
yes.
more trouble. But his mom?
It's the same trouble.
His mom? She's been charged with selling or furnishing liquor to minors. The offense occurred January 31st in State College, Pennsylvania, according to authorities. That was the same date Gavin was charged with felony aggravated assault following an altercation.
This seems,
according to court documents.
This seems so ticky-tacky. Like, we are months down the road from an incident that I think everybody wants to go away.
And Crystal McKenna's like, I'm from the Yukon. I've been furnishing minors with alcohol since they were 16. There's not a whole lot to do up there. We have a few pops on a Friday night or a Saturday night. We watch the game.
Misdemeanors like that, there should be a statute of limitations of like a month or two on that. If this is not a grand jury, indictment here. Like, come on.
Maybe the guys were calling her names and got their lights knocked out. Maybe they have good lawyers and are able to push that file with State College, Pennsylvania police.
Like, what a waste of funds to do. My goodness.
If you want to find adults furnishing minors with liquors, go into the parking lot of the football stadium before game time at the tailgate. I promise you, Penn State, you will find a lot of people there who are drunk and are not of the age to be drunk and thus must have been furnished with liquor by some adult.
My goodness.
And lastly, my goodness, what an incredibly sad day Friday as we lose the legendary hockey coach Ernie Punch McLean at age 93. RCMP confirmed he was involved in a single-vehicle collision just after noon on Friday. Mounties say the crash occurred around 30 kilometers south of Dease Lake. Quote, early investigation indicates the lone male occupant of the vehicle swerved and went off the road and appears to have been ejected from the vehicle. I can remember it was more than a decade ago now where Punch was up in northern BC exploring on his own and got lost in the woods for a few days.
5 days, 4 nights alone in the woods.
At an advanced age. I mean, he was still traveling and exploring on his own at that age. But an extraordinary life lived. His new Westminster Bruins were known as the toughest junior hockey team of them all. 4 WHL championships, 2 Memorial Cups while playing at a Queen's Park Arena. And bring your courage. If you were headed to Queen's Park Arena in the 70s, you were going to need every morsel of it. You can see the Canucks statement there on the screen. Might just leave that up. We'll read it for the audio pod, folks. 4 Memorial Cup appearances, 2 championships, more than 100 players coached to the NHL, and a presence in BC hockey that can never be replaced. Ernie Punch McLean was one of a kind, a legend of the game who gave everything to this province and to players lucky enough to call him coach. Rest easy, Punch. Thank you for the memories, the lessons, and the legacy you leave behind. BC hockey will never forget you. He has been ubiquitous at Rogers Arena, at the press box, around hockey functions here in British Columbia, in retirement. And the extraordinary coincidence, just 2 days before his passing, this was Wednesday, there was a press conference held to officially launch a campaign to build a statue of Punch at or near Queen's Park Arena. The Ernie Punch McLean Legacy Foundation, there's a website, punchlegacy.com. That's punchlegacy.com. People can donate towards the statue and also sign a petition to show their support for the project. Punch was on hand at the press conference. Farhan Lalji emceed it. Foundation, incidentally, is also seeking a corporate partner to help accelerate the timeline. And the director of the Punch Legacy, the Ernie McLean Legacy Foundation, even said at the press conference, like, hey, I'm putting this out there. He's 93. Time is of the essence. Little did we know, 48 hours later, we would lose Punch.
Although, as Farhan said on Twitter later, there was no way Punch was going to pass away due to old age or disease.
Oh, fair enough.
He survived a plane crash in Saskatchewan.
That's right.
Several car accidents.
Yep.
He was run over by a bulldozer at one point in his life, and he was stranded on a frozen lake in freezing conditions for several days. This is in addition to the other story of him being lost in the woods for 5 days.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why I say extraordinary
this
life
is a CBC movie. Like, come on.
Honestly, this
is
guy
a CBC movie.
had stared death in the face and won.
Yes.
Several times over, including into his 80s.
Yeah, quite a character.
Yeah.
And the
And
friendly...
like, I only knew him much later life, right? Like, I guess I first met him when he was in his mid-70s.
That's me too.
But I sort of had a little bit of trouble, with this gregarious 70-year-old, mid-70-year-old thinking this was the toughest, roughest, most intimidating coach in junior hockey. I had a little bit of trouble drawing that connection. I've read all the stories. I've heard all the stories of what the New West Bruins were like. But, as someone who spent some time around Brian Kilray and some of the other hardened junior hockey coaches, I had a little bit of trouble seeing Ernie in that role, though I'm sure Stan Smeal and all the ex-Bruins players could tell you, no, he was every bit that.
I had to ask people in the press box, because when I started attending the Canucks press box, I was like, who's the charismatic ex-boxer that's always here? I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
He clearly was an ex-boxer. That's all I knew, because that face looked like it had been in the boxing ring.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, oh, no, he coached WHL. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Anyways, we extend our condolences, sympathies, and well wishes to the family and friends of Ernie Punch McLean, a true BC original who will not soon be forgotten. Let's get that statue up at Queen's Park Arena, all right? punchlegacy.com if you can donate. Our menu today brought to you by Greta. Fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. You were mere steps from the arena or the stadium. It's also an outstanding venue for your next private function, whether this is a work party, a team party, a family reunion. Greta has an amazing private riser in the back of the room. You're surrounded by televisions. You have your own private bar there. There's the arcade and all the games for everyone, an approachable menu of street food. Try the smash burger. It is absolutely delicious. To get more information, to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. I have mentioned a couple times, but Uffe Bodin, who is the head of content for Better Collective and a long-standing chronicler of Swedish hockey, is going to join us from his home in Sweden. We will talk the Sedin twins elevating. We will talk Ivar Stenberg and whether or not he could be a Vancouver Canuck and where he ranks amongst all the Swedish hockey prospects that Uffe has seen. We'll talk about the amazing achievement for Linus Carlton making his country's national team. Ogren, Höglander, Allvin, Elias Pettersson, all topics that feature with Uffe. We will also talk to David Pagnotta, editor-in-chief of the Fourth Period, also the DFO Insider, Wednesdays on the Nation Network with Urf Gafar. There's a Habs fan in the building. He's wearing his hat. He doffs it at me each and every time he sees me here in the building, so it's just waving at him. Pagnotta will tell us how they got to this, first offer and now apparently acceptance from the Sedin twins to join the organization. Also talk to him about Evan Gold, the rebuild, and the number 3 overall pick, or as David suggests, could that become the number 2 overall pick with the trade?
Hungry
with San
Canucks.
Jose.
I don't know.
Later in the program, the Whitecaps get another result. They haven't lost since March. We also know their road in the Canadian Championship, looking for a 5th consecutive Voyageurs Cup. More on the World Cup and Canada's roster, which was supposed to be out today but isn't coming out today. Also talk some baseball with the Blue Jays, Mariners, and Vancouver Canadians. And BC Lions training camp is underway in Kamloops. Day 1, veterans on the field, so you can get a sense of who are the projected starters and who's in line to compete for those starting positions. We will get to that on the Lions report a little later on in the show. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day, Blake. I have zero memory of what I picked on Friday, but I'm pretty sure it was a loser. As for you, I guarantee it was a loser. Oh, no, I picked...
it wasn't.
No, hold on. I had under 2.5 goals for Whitecaps San Jose. There was 2 goals. It's a winner. We'll go first. You may hate to see it, but Quinn Hughes has scored some beautiful goals in this postseason. And there are goals to be had in this Minnesota-Colorado series. You may have noticed that as well.
There are.
Plus, as a D-man, you get great value on Hughes as an anytime goal scorer. I will take the former Canucks captain to score tonight at any point in Game 4 at plus 475.
That's a lot, but it's a lot to expect as well.
And incidentally, I believe I said Game 3, Colorado, Minnesota tonight. It's Game 4.
I'm going to go with a little more of a sure thing. Matthew Boldy is almost a goal per game in these playoffs.
He's been incredible.
7 in 9. And even with that, I think it's a pretty decent line at plus 135 for an anytime goal scorer. So I'll take that. Thank you very much. Matthew Boldy to score at any point.
Every sports fan will tell you that not all games are created equal. Sometimes the excitement just isn't there. Sometimes you get a dud. It happens. In fact, it's happened a lot in this postseason. But at Bet365, boring games are a thing of the past. There's always a reason to tune in, even if the score isn't one of them. And while they can't make every game excited, they can help fans get excited about every game. Bet365. Download the app today. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Uffe Bodin on all things Swedish Canuck coming up. So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We welcome in an old friend here. He's the head of content for Better Collective, a long time chronicler of Swedish hockey. He's in the same corporate family as us now, Uffe Bodin. Good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to see you guys. How have you been?
We've been fantastic. We have plenty of going on here in Vancouver. And, of course, as always, tons of Swedish storylines with the Vancouver Canucks, Uffe. So we'll start with the big one. It sounds like Hank and Danny are finally ready here to elevate within the Canucks organization and be a part of the front office. You know them. You've known them pretty well. What's your reaction to the decision that they'll be joining the front office?
Well, I think it's about time. Like, you get rid of one Swede and you get two new, right? So I think that's the lay of the land there. But no, I think it feels. I mean, I wouldn't. We have the Matt Sedin situation in Toronto, obviously, but Hank and Danny, they've been around Vancouver Canucks for basically since their own careers ended. So I think it's a natural step for him to climb the ladder a bit, because obviously, as you guys know, they are two very smart dudes, and I think they're destined to do really good things for the Canucks. And from what I hear, just talking to Swedish players that have been in the system with the Canucks, they they rave about Hank and Danny and, what kind of impact they've had on their careers. So I think this is a natural step for him, and I have a hard time seeing that the Canucks will be worse with them, climbing the ladder.
I was just always curious about their hunger to do it. They obviously have the knowledge, they have the smarts as you talk about, but they don't need it. And none of these guys need it. Matt Sundin doesn't need it in Toronto either. But, you have to really want it. And all the trappings that go along with it. Does it surprise you? Because these are pretty private guys. They took on the burden of being assistant captains and captains because they just knew they needed to do that as the cornerstones of the franchise. But this is you're volunteering to take on this burden this time around. Are you surprised at that angle?
I think to some extent you always get a bit surprised when it comes to star players per se, because obviously their financial situation, it doesn't really require them to do so. But I think, right. Both Hank and Danny, their kids are getting pretty old now. We have, I think, Hank's son Walter is playing actually football here in Sweden, here in Stockholm with Hammarby. So, I think they're also getting to that point in their family lives where, okay, what's next? When the kids are maybe a bit too old for you to sort of stay at home and do things with them. So I think maybe that's an avenue that kind of opened up for them at this point in their lives. And I think the hunger for, winning, it doesn't go away just because you're in your career. You want to do something for your team. And I think they realize too that this is an opportunity that might never come again. So why not take the chance?
Marcus Naslund was in town during this process. It's unclear how serious he went down that road. Are you surprised that he didn't become a bigger possibility here?
No, I actually, the last time I spoke to Marcus was actually when I was in Vancouver for the Sedin retirement ceremony there with the jerseys. And he said, because he had been involved in Swedish hockey with Modo as a general manager for a bit, and he seemed very happy not to be working in hockey anymore. He was doing real estate and other things. I think they have a restaurant there in Örnsköldsvik as well. So not too surprised, just based on the conversation I had with him then, it was pretty obvious that he did not want to have any part in ice hockey anymore.
The other thing about the Twins, Uffe, as we all know, they care deeply about the Vancouver Canucks. They care deeply about the city of Vancouver. These are two of the rare Swedes that we got to keep here in Canada after their playing days. No, but, take that on because we see most Swedish hockey stars return to Sweden after their playing days are done. And we got to keep Hank and Danny here, and they continue to make our community better. Yeah,
and, as you mentioned, it's most Swedish NHL players that I talk to, they can't wait to go back home because obviously they're away for such a long time. So I think they have sort of a longing to get back home and be a part of Swedish culture. But as you mentioned, like Hank and Danny, they always stay around. I know they both have, houses back home, but which they go to in the summertime. But at the same time, obviously, they really, they grew up basically in Vancouver. They came there as boys. They became men there. They created all this amazing legacy, being maybe the two best Vancouver Canucks players that have existed. So I think that's rare, and it says something about them, and obviously how much they love the city and how much they care for the team. So I was actually going to say that's the thing they have in common with Matt Sundin, but he actually moved back home. So I think their love for the Canucks might go a bit deeper, actually.
Yeah, well, and they're only 90 minutes to Whistler, and I think they're like 5 or 6 hours to Åre, Sweden, in the main skiing spot, so that may have something to do with it as well. Switching gears, Uffe, Linus Karlsson has made the Swedish national team for the World Hockey Championships. He was one of 3 Canucks vying for a spot on this team. He's been such a great story here as we've watched him grow up. We all remember the trade, of course, for another Swedish player and Jonathan Dahlin, where it didn't work out. We thought, okay, they made a desperate trade because Dahlin wanted out. Who's this Carlson kid? Step by step, he has made himself a bigger part of this Canucks organization and now a big part of the Swedish national team. A word or two on Linus Karlsson and his development as you've seen it from across the ocean.
Just an amazing story because, as you mentioned, like it's this reminder that you don't have to, speed up things in your career. That you take it step by step. And I think Linus Karlsson is like the poster boy of that because he, when he was back in juniors, he actually stayed at home in his tiny village and played for the team there instead of, rushing off to, some fancy Swedish junior system and, just took the steps from there. And I've always been amazed by his journey because like he's taken every step. It might have been a bit slow in the start, but once he got, full gear, then it's just been an upward trajectory. And I think this season was amazing to see. Because I think we were all wondering, okay, will he actually be able to make the team ahead of camp? Because there was like a logjam a bit there going into camp. But I think now when you look back at it and the way he produced with, basically very little ice time, it's very impressive. And from the things I've seen from him during the Swedish camp here in the past 2 weeks, I think it's well deserved that he is actually getting this spot on the team because he has played his heart out.
Are you surprised Liam Ogren didn't make the team? He looked like he was part of the regular rotation.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, basically, there's only like a few occasions I can remember when they bring NHL players back for camp, ahead of the World Championships, and when they actually don't make the team, and especially this year when there's actually not a lot of NHL players that have shown interest in playing for the Swedish team in this tournament. So. With the Olympics and everything. So I was really surprised to see him not make the team. I didn't watch all the games that they played here in the exhibition tournaments that went on, but I saw a few, and I don't think he did himself any disfavor. And I think he played pretty good. I mean, considering where the Canucks were and after the trade, I think he made quite a good impression on me. Compared to what had been the case in Minnesota beforehand. So, I was really surprised that he didn't make the cut, and I do not have an answer to why.
Yeah. Matt misspoke. He said there's only 3 Canucks. There's 3.5 because Stenberg is there as well. And he's right there within reach. First of all, Ivar or Ivar? How would you pronounce it?
Ivar.
Okay, Ivar it is for going forward. If he plays well at this tournament, I mean, I think it becomes ironclad that he is the second best forward. Now, again, San Jose, whether or not
or
they
first, Blake, or first. There's a lot of people who think he's the best player available.
Could he,
in this draft.
if he looks great at this tournament, could he do that? Could he supplant people's opinions here on Gavin McKenna?
That's going to be a tall task. After the World Juniors, I felt like he was actually inching in that direction. But, now that we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs will pick number 1, and I think there's certain things about Toronto picking a Canadian player as well. And I think they just have more data on him than they might have on Ivar. But at the same time, I think it's going to be interesting to see, like in 5 years, where we're at, because Ivar is obviously I've seen him much more than Gavin McKenna, so I'm on the other side of the spectrum a bit. But he's such a thinker of the game, so smart, and he has this really rare gift that he can just dictate the pace of the game in a way that's so impressive. And even doing that against men in a very good league in Sweden was really impressive to see this season. So we'll see, but I wouldn't mind him ending up with the Canucks. I mean, the Sharks, they don't really need him because they have like all the talent up front that they need. They need a defenseman. So it's going to be interesting to see, will they keep the pick or actually trade it to pick a defenseman later? I don't know. But I wouldn't mind seeing Ivar on the Vancouver Canucks. It would actually be pretty cool considering the Swedish history. Although I hear some Canucks fans after how things have gone, especially number 40 these past seasons. Mm-hmm. I think they might think that it's wiser to look in another direction.
40 and 43.
Wow, we're going to get to 40 in a second. 43. We'll get to number 40 in the second, but Stenberg and Viggo Bjork make the World Championship team. This is the first time that 2 draft-eligible Swedish skaters have made the World Championship team since 1999, and we know the names, Hank and Daniel Sedin. Uffe, you've been covering Swedish hockey for a long time. Is Stenberg the best prospect you've seen?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. I think Rasmus Dahlin is the obvious number one, but he's a defenseman. So when it comes to forwards, wow, that's a tough one. I mean, Gabriel Landeskog was another guy who went second overall, but he played obviously his junior hockey in Canada with the Kitchen Raiders, so we didn't see him, in the same lens. But he's up there for sure. Just the smartness and the hockey IQ is off the charts. So I'll be hard pressed to say anyone else. I think Leo Carlsson is doing amazing things for the Anaheim Ducks this season, especially in the playoffs. But I think Stenberg is actually ahead of him where he was when he played his draft year in Sweden. So I think that says something about Stenberg.
Well, we were noticing all season long the amount of scoring he was doing in the top division of Swedish hockey, and some of the names that were in his class, Naslund, Forsberg, Sedin, and some of the others was just absolutely extraordinary.
I just brought up Adrian Kempe's SHL numbers. Like, nothing. There's nothing there. Like, he did nothing at the SHL level. Look what he is like. And I know you can't, use that rule of, okay, then he'll be twice as good as Kempe. I know you can't say that, but it just shows you the development of this guy at this age. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got his first taste last year, and you could see when he got into the playoffs, like, okay, this kid has something, and then it just snowballed from there, basically. So, it will be really interesting to see him in this World Championships when playing in the World Juniors, he was really good, especially in the late stages of that tournament. But now he's really going to play against a lot of, especially they played Canada in the first game, and you've seen what kind of team they have over there. So it's going to be a great challenge for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how he fares against some of the best players in the world.
Okay, we mentioned number 40. I am interested in what you think and what the Swedish hockey community thinks as they've cast an eye here to Vancouver over the last couple of years and what has become of Elias Pettersson.
Both in a Canucks jersey and in a Swedish jersey. He's not been great wearing the Trey Kroner
the Swedish
either.
jersey a couple of times in that time,
I still think during the Olympics, obviously, you didn't really have the same expectations considering how these past years have been. But at the same time, I think he worked his ass off, did the small things right. And I think that's been the case in Vancouver too this season. But, carrying that 11.6 million cap hit, it doesn't do justice just to be like grinding your way. You need to pick up the scoring. And I wish I had an answer. I don't watch all the Canucks games, but the thing I see with him is the skating doesn't seem to be at the same level as it used to be. I don't know if that's injury related, if it's if it's strength or maybe a combination of both. But it's pretty obvious to me that he's not the same player that we saw a few years ago, and I also think it's very much crept into his confidence because, as you guys remember, that lethal shot that we saw all the time, the one-timer, he just kept hammering away on the power play and being so successful with that. It's basically, you don't see that anymore. It's very rare that you see him, just rip it like he used to do. So I met Elias last summer. Bauer Hockey had this combine camp, and he was obviously very frustrated with the season he had, and he was really focused, he said, on making it better this season. But obviously it hasn't worked out. And I just keep wondering. I know he said the right things at the end of the season, the last media availability, that he loves the city and he wants to play there. But I just wonder if it's not for the best for everyone, for him and for the team, that they find a way to walk separate ways, find a way to trade him. I know it's going to be hard, but after these 2 seasons and the way it's progressed, I think it would be best for everyone involved.
Are you familiar with the group that he works out with there in Sweden, Uffe, and his off-season activities?
Not really. I know he moved to Stockholm, and he had I remember he talking about he had a training group there, but I'm not really familiar with like who is part of that and who is, leading the way there. So I can't really comment on that.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. A couple more questions. We forgot the third official guy vying for the Swedish national team, like Nils Höglander, and we know he was taken out of contention by the injury. I'm interested in your opinion on Höglander over the last couple of years as well.
Yeah,
because we thought he was going to be a real keeper here with the work rate and all the goals he scored a couple of years back.
Yeah, I don't think you were alone in that assessment, considering what kind of a contract he got from that season. But this season it's been just one thing after another. It's just like bad luck. It just comes in bunches for some people. And I mean, we didn't get to see much of him during this Swedish camp. He basically showed up and he got injured the first game, and then it didn't work out. So it's too bad. Everyone who's seen him at his best in Vancouver knows that he has, the grit and really the feistiness to be a player. I mean, I look at a guy like Zach Benson with the Buffalo Sabres this season, and especially in the playoffs and the way he plays. And I think Höglander, not to that extent, but he's got some of that in him. Like, he can be a pest to play against. I mean, in Sweden last season, he could really drive opponents nuts with the way he just chopped away at him. And I think there's if he just gets healthy and can play the way he can, or the way he's supposed to play, then I think he can be a really effective player for the Canucks. But it's just too bad, especially this season. With I think he scored like 2 goals or something the first exhibition game, and then like the injury, and after that he was never the same. So you can only hope that he has a good summer and that he can bounce back from this.
I mean, here's the silver lining for him. There should be opportunity for him. Like, it's not like he has to climb over a deep field on the wings to get ice time here. It's really going to be up to him, right, to prove that he can do it.
Absolutely. And obviously we don't know who's going to be the general manager or the coach maybe at this point, but that will be interesting, of course, how they view him. I mean, it's basically a clean slate for every player, which for some players might not be a good thing, but I expect like the Canucks to be very active this summer because they have a lot of holes to fill, as you know. But it'd be interesting to see what kind of rebuild this is, because the owner doesn't seem to be too keen on, another Chicago Blackhawks type of rebuild where it takes a very long time. So we'll see. But you're absolutely right. I mean, who knows? He could be a top 6 player next season. It's pretty. Yeah. They're pretty a lot of holes to fill there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, Uffe, first time we've got a chance to speak to you since the demise of the first Swedish general manager in NHL history in Patrik Allvin. Was that a meaningful story in Sweden, or has everybody now moved on to Sundin Mania in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone was surprised by the decision. Just like you, we always wonder, okay, how much say did Patrik Allvin actually have? How much did Jim Rutherford run the business? It's something that I guess only they could answer, but it seemed like Jim Rutherford held him accountable when he spoke to the media later on there. But yeah, I mean, we have Alex Steen coming into the St. Louis Blues front office
That's
now,
right.
taking over after Doug Armstrong. So that's going to be a story in July. And obviously Matt's stepping into Toronto, and now the Sedins as well. So we have a lot of other stories. But I mean, no one was surprised based on just the result, and it's a result-driven business. So I can't say it was a shock that Allvin was let go, but you're always going to have those questions around who really ran the show there.
I can see the Allvin trailblazer, all the Swedes that followed in his wake in NHL front offices.
Yeah, so we'll see if any of them fare any better than he did.
We can only hope. Certainly the two here in Vancouver at the very least. Great catching up, my friend. Thank you for making time on a Stockholm evening here to join us. Appreciate
always
this.
Always a pleasure.
And we're going to call back on you, particularly, I suspect, around draft time, Uffe. So appreciate this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hope so.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, the Nation Network, your ultimate playoff headquarters. From expert shows, deep dive articles, live social updates, analytics, fantasy insights, covering every moment, whether it's epic goals, big hits, game-changing plays. One network, every moment. Tune in to the DFO Rundown or the Sheet with Jeff Merrick daily for your postseason coverage. And speaking of the DFO Insider David Pagnotta, the editor-in-chief of the fourth period, joins us now with so much happening in the Canucks front office. David, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Should be an entertaining week in Vancouver, I'm sure.
Yeah, it sounds that way. Okay, the Sedins have agreed to join the front office. We're still unsure of the positions and titles and the organizational flowchart, but tell us how we got to this moment.
Well, they as much focus as there's been on the general manager position and whoever's heading hockey ops, there was a clear indication throughout this process that they wanted to give Daniel and Henrik Sedin more of a more prominent role, I should say, within the organization. And the appetite from them has been pretty much mutual. One of the things that they harped on because this is something that they've wanted, guys, for the organization, has wanted for some time. But, the Sedins didn't want to just go into this and, cold turkey. They wanted to have some involvement within the organization and learn different parameters of the organization off the ice before committing to anything higher up in the front office. We know they've been involved in player development and they've been on the ice and they've been doing all of that. And I've got to imagine that, because I know they enjoy it, I've got to imagine they'll want to keep it in some fashion. But now they're going to have more say with respect to the day-to-day hockey ops and the overall decision-making. Whoever comes in as GM, and it does look like Evan Gold is a leading candidate here, and there will also be some additional changes here to the organization off the ice beyond what we're talking about right now. But they want to have, the organization wants to have the Sedins involved in this as well. And with Jim Rutherford transitioning out, it makes a lot of sense to implement this now as they go through all of this and just make it one big whole swoop here. Here's our new front office.
It sounds like they want everybody, right? Like they would love to hold on to Ryan Johnson, and they'd love to have the Twins there, and sounds like Evan Gold is in the mix here as well. But, they want everybody there, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I anticipate some changes with, I just mentioned with regards to the staff. I believe there's going to be at least one change at the AGM level as well. And if Evan Gold does come in, I've got to imagine he's going to want to bring in somebody as well that fits for him. I know, is it a Jamie Langenbrunner out of Boston? Bit of a lateral move, so I'm not sure how that's going to, play out. But I'm sure he's going to want to bring in somebody as well at the AGM level to work with him. If Ryan Johnson sticks around, it sounds like he'll maintain his AGM position, but there may be something added to that with respect to responsibility and title beyond Abbotsford as well. So you have that element. You've got a change at the AGM post, at least one that's going to be occurring. And the Sedins coming in, we could see more changes happening as well. We do know that the scouting staff, almost all of them, their contracts run out at the end of the NHL year, which is the 30th of June is the last day. So there's going to be some additional decisions that have to be made on that front as well.
The Canucks could set a league record for VPs, maybe. We know that titles matter just because moving from team to team, as you mentioned, if you're an AGM elsewhere, you generally can't leave that team unless you're getting a promotion.
Right.
If you call it a VP, I guess you would qualify under those rules, right?
Technically, yes. VP, of hockey operations,
Yes.
could be something that follows for, whomever ends up, being added to the staff. You mentioned earlier, we don't know the definitive positions yet as we're doing this as to what the Sedins are going to have. Are they going to have joint VP of hockey ops, titles? Is Ryan Johnson, for example, going to be AGM and executive vice president? Something along those lines. However that ends up being, it sounds like and whatever the titles are, it sounds like that's going to be the makeup of the front office, along with whatever additional changes are going to be made to the hockey ops side of things.
What can you tell us about Evan Gold, David? We've heard his name now for a couple of weeks. We've seen him involved in other general manager searches as well.
Yep.
What's the industry say? What can you tell us about Evan Gold?
Yeah, bright hockey mind, and what we've noticed over the last month and a bit or two, really, starting with Nashville search, is that the next wave of these GMs are starting to enter the equation. And what he brings to the table with respect to his contract negotiations, his cap management, the analytic portion that he implements, intertwined into all of it, he's been a big reason for Boston's success over the last little stretch, and then their resurgence as well with how they've been. It was a much better season for them this year than certainly last year. But he's had a prominent fixture and role within that rejuvenation, I should say, for the Boston Bruins coming into this season, but also for the last stretch. But again, bright hockey mind, good negotiator. He handled the contracts. He's good with the money. He's good with the numbers. It's kind of all encompassing, which is this new wave of next GMs. You've got to be able to focus on a variety of different elements here, and have your tentacles wrapped around the different dynamics of running a sports organization and being able to implement the data side of it with the hockey side of it, and kind of marrying the two. And he seems to have done a really good job there, which is why he's been, under consideration for pretty much every position that's been open so far within the National Hockey League right now.
We saw some Boston writers and bloggers last week talking about how there's a little bit of discontent at AHL Providence with some agents, with some players. Now, most of it seems directed at the head coach, maybe not a great bedside manner at the head coach there, but he does run the AHL Providence Bruins. Do you know what's happening there with the Bruins Farm Club?
Well, from that side, I don't have full intricacies as to what's been happening on that regard. It does seem like it's more of the kind of player management side of things than anything. With experience there in running that, like, you're seeing a lot of different. Like, a lot of these GMs, or new GMs, have had experience, as I mentioned, in a variety of different elements of hockey ops, but then being able to oversee the junior side of things, or the minors side of things within the A is valued quite a bit, because being able to multitask, especially nowadays, is certainly key. With respect to any of that side negativity kind of angle that's being paved there. I think that's more geared towards kind of player usage and implementation versus
that's it.
The negotiation player like off ice kind of material.
The Gold side of the equation,
right.
Yes, which needless to say is different. He's not sitting there telling coach who to play in what situations and things of that nature, let alone dressing room management or anything like that.
If Ryan Johnson doesn't get the job. Yeah, I mean, they've really got to sweeten things for him, right? Because he could very well just try to fish in other seas here and maybe try to get the Nashville gig.
And nobody would blame him, certainly for not being able to evolve even further within the Canucks organization. There was a lot of praise when this search started. He's been held in high regard from Jim Rutherford's side, and there was a lot of belief that This was just a formality that it was going to go in this direction. Now, it's still possible because we don't have full clarity and definitiveness on the position. Although, again, it does sound like Evan Gold is the guy, but we'll see the official word. This could be a scenario with everything going on in Nashville too, because they've slow played their search. They've got their prime candidates, but you've got to wonder if he doesn't get the gig. If they give him the opportunity to have a formal interview, with the Predators, unless, again, because of how much they do value him and how much, Jim Rutherford may influence this decision, you add, some extra responsibilities to the mix and give him some type of, equivalent to a C-suite kind of role within the organization, within the hockey ops side of things. And that might, for him, from his side of things, be enough to kind of, cool the waters on his end and be comfortable within an expanded role within the organization.
Yeah, I hear you. This owner likes marquee value, name recognition. Got it in Jim Rutherford, a Stanley Cup winning Hall of Fame executive. Hired it previous to that in Trevor Linden, who, of course, a few names bigger here in the province of British Columbia. Do you think Evan Gold was just not quite name enough, and that's why we're seeing the Sedins link up here, that they have something to sell that's a little bit bigger than kind of an unknown numbers and legal guy out of Boston?
I mean, it does appease, I would imagine, the fan base a little bit more to have the Sedins more engaged within the organization and the overall decision process. I think what really shifted for this team, especially at the ownership level, was the acceptance of going through a legitimate rebuild. Because when you're going through a retool and you're still trying to compete and then, speed up that level of compete, the experienced guys come in here just like almost on a coaching level. If you're inching closer towards a Stanley Cup and you need that finisher behind the bench, you go in there, you bring in that guy. It's very similar on the managerial side of things, where the teams you feel is there. You need to make the right pieces. I got to bring in somebody who's done this before and can take us over the edge. Because of this rebuild and official stamp on the rebuild, I think that notion has shifted within the Aquilini side of it. And I think there's acceptance there and I think a lot of it also plays into the public reaction to what's gone on in the last couple of weeks. The public perception has not been doom and gloom. It's been finally, right? It's we're accepting this because you guys are accepting this. And for the love of God, we've been waiting for this for a while for you guys to admit this. I think that public acceptance has also factored in to say, all right, well, we're not going to get destroyed for this because this is the right direction we need to go in. But the fans understand that. And the appreciation of that type of level of honesty, quite frankly, I think is long overdue in this particular market. And I think they've understood that. I think they recognize that. You're seeing some of the other, at least one other member of the Aquilini family engaged in this whole process with Dax Aquilini in the mix. And I think I'm not saying a transition from that side of things. I just think the transition is where the mindset is. And this rebuild has allowed them to explore an individual like Evan Gold and some of the other candidates that were there as well. A lot of them would be first-time GMs anywhere. But bringing in that type of mindset to bring this organization along the right path of this rebuild, I think has allowed them to go in a direction of, a fresh new a GM position without having Rutherford there as well.
Would you have any concerns, particularly without Ryan Johnson, who I think does fit this bill, about the communication from this front office? Because while everybody loves the Sedin twins, they are still not the most verbose people in terms of communicating the plan. And fan confidence, of course, is a big thing here. We don't know about Evan Gold, how well he's going to be able to communicate with the public, with the media. Again, it's not about being nice. It's about actually just being able to lay out what the team is thinking going forward. Would that worry you with those three? And again, I think Ryan Johnson can do that. But if he's not there, right, Evan Gold and the twins, is that going to be good enough to communicate with the fans on an ongoing basis?
The way that I would view this is, assuming it's Evan Gold, for argument's sake.
Yeah.
That's your guy talking to the public on a regular basis. I don't think you need to have the Sedins under that umbrella, under that spotlight, I should say. I don't think you need that. With whatever title they're going to have, with whatever role they're going to have, whatever their responsibilities are, okay, on occasion they'll do some interviews here and there, but the primary messaging has to be the head of the hockey ops department. And presumably under this, what we assume and are led to believe is this new change, that GM will be that person in charge of the hockey ops. So that should be the person that's relaying the message. Especially in a market like Vancouver, and you just illustrated it, that level of communication is important. I don't think they're going to bring in, whether it's that, I mean, Toronto just made their change. John Chaika handled himself with all of the questions. I was there. All of the questions and all of the stuff that was put on him, he handled himself pretty well in his communication with the media. You need to have that as well, especially in Vancouver also. So I think that's under consideration too. What does everybody want? What do the fans want? You want transparency. You want as much honesty as you can. You want that level of communication to be open. Don't give us all your trade secrets, because go do what you got to do. But open the window a crack for us to kind of peer into. And I think this organization has understood that now, finally. And I think whoever ends up being the official GM, I think we'll be able to relay that message in the positive way. I don't think you have to rely on the Sedins to share that burden, because that's not going to be part of their responsibility.
I hope Gold's a natural, that's all, right? Because he doesn't have the reps. So that's
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them that don't have the reps in terms of public speaking and public facing when they get into this job, right? Like, there's very few positions like NHL general manager that have that degree of public communication and front facing to the public. Are you done with front office questions? I've got one. David, what do you think San Jose is going to do second overall here? Let's talk about that picks in. Well, that's the other big fascination here in Vancouver, right? Is like who's going to be available at number 3 there. What do you think San Jose is going to do at second or overall? Do you think it's a lock that the Leafs are taking Gavin McKenna at first overall?
I'm going to say no, only because we haven't had those discussions yet with the organization. So the belief and the assumption is that, it's going to be Gavin McKenna at number 1. And the fact that people are running around Toronto with McKenna jerseys already may sway their decision a little bit on the business side. I know Keith Pelly has mentioned he doesn't want to chime in, but when you start seeing that, it might be hard for him not to. So for argument's sake, he goes 1. There will be a lot of interest in that number 2 pick. I think there already is. And I believe, like Mike Greer said, he's willing to listen and all that, their GM. But given where they're at, they shopped the number 2 pick last summer. And they didn't get what they wanted. They held on to it. They were comfortable doing it. They got Michael Misa. I think it's the same scenario here, where now it's a little bit different because they're so deep up front with high-level young talent. I think there might be more of a willingness to explore alternative options in terms of moving down a little bit, because they definitely want to address their decor. And you've got, within the top 6, you've got 3 guys, at least, depending on how you're viewing it, 3, maybe 4 guys that can go top 6 that play D. And I think they're looking at Reed. I think they're going to take a look at, Verhoff and some of the others as well, Carlson and so on. But I think if there's an opportunity to address another part of the roster, I think they take a look at it. And if Vancouver determines, whoever takes over and they sit down and they go, what, Stenberg's a can't miss, do they approach San Jose and explore that possibility? I could see that being something that happens. How far those discussions go, don't know. But there are going to be teams that are going to look at that. I think the Rangers are going to poke around on it too. So if the Canucks do explore that possibility, there is going to be some competition there, from that angle to see what other teams get in the mix. Most interesting on both sides of this equation, the draft pick and the front office. Yes. The other side on that, and this is just me spitballing, this is just idea-wise, but we all know where Jake DeBrusk stands on this rebuild. Is that a carrot you want to dangle in terms of moving up. Free up the money, free up the contract, get him into a healthy environment, potentially get Stenberg at 2.
Is that too expensive to move up one spot, given there's
may
a
be,
lot of
and this-
talent in that level, I think?
It may be a larger, type of situation, but for a team that's rebuilding that wants to free up a little bit of extra dollars in that respect, it might be worth an exploration.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, David. Thank you for this. We'll look forward to this week. We'll catch up soon, my friend.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center in the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Big game downtown. Make Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center your home base for game night and beyond. Walk to the action. Sleep like a champ. Plan your stay at wallcenter.com. And before we get into Whitecaps and baseball and other Lions and other happenings, just want to shout out Trevor and the staff at the Black Forest Schnitzel House in Harrison Hot Springs, Blake.
I think I've eaten there.
It's a marvelous spot right there on the water.
Yes, I have eaten there then. Yeah.
We went to Harrison Hot Springs this weekend, part of a trip for my mother's birthday, and we had a delightful meal, and Trevor came over at the end, and he was like, "Are you involved in broadcasting?" And I went, "Maybe." He said, "Sports broadcasting?" And I was like, "Yeah, possibly." And he goes, "I think I know you. The staff and I were talking. And I went, "Blake Price, pleased to meet you." It's my favorite gag.
Yes.
He knew better.
Did he? Yes.
Whitecaps forge a 1-1 draw in an excellent match from San Jose. This was
fun.
This was quality entertainment, quality soccer from the two best teams.
Risky
MLS.
business from San
It
Jose.
was.
Like that was a hell of a defensive effort from them, because they said, we're going to be very conservative and let you guys come at us, and we think we can hold you off. And they did.
And it created some, really entertaining moments in this game. A 1-1 draw keeps Vancouver level in second place of MLS and the Western Conference, 3 points back of San Jose with a game in hand. After surrendering a goal just 4 minutes into this one, Sebastian Berhalter got the Caps level in the 76th minute on his 25th birthday. He's still only 25, huh? Happy birthday, Seb. Yeah, he's got a very big future, and I think that includes Europe if he wants it. Vancouver now unbeaten in 6 matches. They have not lost since dropping a 1-0 decision to the same San Jose team at the end of March. Thomas Muller did not play in this match after battling an illness earlier in the week. We sort of knew that was coming, right?
Yeah.
Andres Kubas was the man of the match, as he could be just about every match for Vancouver. He is that central.
It's his birthday today.
To their win. His birthday, too.
He just turned 30 today.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And once again, Ranko Veselinovic available, but did not play. That's 3 straight games, Blake. Is he falling out of rotation just because they're so happy with what Matthias Laborda and Tristan Blackman are doing at center back?
Yeah, I think if on the schedule, if there was a lesser light on the schedule this week, I think you would have maybe seen him draw in. And I think he's going to draw in this week. They've got a busy week. They've got a 3-game week, right? So I think he plays this week. But
they got Dallas on Wednesday in Dallas. Now, Dallas is 7th place in the MLS. Then they're off to Houston on the weekend.
Houston just came up with a big win.
8th place.
But Houston just smoked LAFC. So I would bet Ranko plays Wednesday.
He's got to play at some point here, I would think.
Yeah.
Caps started midweek play this week. That's the other story here. They had not played on a Wednesday so far this season in MLS play. San Jose started midweek play a few weeks back, and they face Seattle on Wednesday. In fact, Vancouver won't make up this game in hand against the Earthquakes till July after the World Cup. And speaking of, 1 month away from the FIFA World Cup that gets going June 11th. Many teams are announcing their roster, including Canada's first opponent, Bosnia and Herzegovina, who they play June 12th. So 1 day into the tournament in Toronto.
You don't want to comb through the defenders on B&H?
Not so much.
Try to do a scouting match on
Lots
them?
of itches, though, I noticed from their release video. And Matthew Shinetti reporting From TSN, Canadian men's national team has chosen not to publicly release its World Cup provisional squad. Been told when team announces the 26-man squad by June 1st, Canada might release their provisional squad then. Until June 12th, Canada can draw outfield replacements from its provisional squad.
And
so
I
we'll
think
have
the reason
to wait a
there
little
is
longer.
Everybody's
Everybody's
injured.
hurt.
So
Everybody hurt.
what's the point?
Yep.
Got to see who's ready.
Vancouver FC nets 2 second-half goals to beat Langley United FC from the BC Premier League out at Willoughby Community Park yesterday. That puts them into the quarterfinals of the Canadian Championship versus CF Montreal. The Whitecaps, as you can see there on the top left side of the bracket, will face Cavalry FC out of Calgary, who defeated Pacific FC. And because TFC lost to Atletico Ottawa, the reigning CPL champions, the bottom right side of the bracket there, we are guaranteed to have a non-MLS side play for the Voyageurs Cup. And that's because the Whitecaps and CF Montreal, the only two MLS sides remaining, are on the same side of the bracket and would meet in the semifinals.
Yes, it's crazy. Montreal's over in the western side, basically, of the bracket. Bizarre.
But also this CS Saint Laurent team from Montreal has advanced as well. They're not CPL.
No. Third division.
Yeah.
That's what the Open Cups are all about, though,
That's right.
A little Cinderella story.
My dad grew up in Saint Laurent. We spent many time, Christmas, holiday, summer there. There is a lot of soccer in the fields around that.
Rovers have made it to the quarters before, I think.
Believe so.
Yeah.
Yes. Vancouver Cavalry will be in July on July 8th, as a matter of fact. I don't believe we have a venue for that match yet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't see any
No.
stadium listed there. We know the Whitecaps are going to have to play outside of BC Place for some of these Canadian Championship clashes. BC Lions training camp underway with vets hitting the field for day one yesterday. Look at the enthusiasm. I love it.
Like puppies being released in the
Exactly.
backyard. It's so excited. That's very good.
Yeah. There he is. There's your QB1, Nathan Rourke. Corey Woodruff aligned at left tackle with the first team after the free agent departure of Jarrell Broxton to Winnipeg this winter. He's a guard by trade, Woodruff, in his third season with the Lions. He did make 2 starts at tackle last year. They signed Joshua Coker, a CFL veteran tackle from Calgary last week, but he's recovering from ACL surgery. He and safety Christophe Beaulieu, also ACL surgery, were placed on the 6-game injured list by the Lions. Brandon Yates, who made 1 start last year for BC in that late season victory at Calgary where they just ran the ball down Calgary's throat. He gets the first chance to be the starter at left guard as the Leos look to go with 4 American offensive linemen. Disappointing, Bradley Anai placed on the suspended list after not reporting to Kamloops. J.C. Abbott of 3 Down Nation reporting that the team has been aware for some time that Anai wasn't intending on continuing his career with the Lions, or at least on his current rookie contract. There's also pretty stiff competition at edge rusher for the Lions, with, of course, Mathieu Betts holding down 1 spot. Sione Tuiema was re-signed, and Levi Bell, who came on last season, looked really good. Also part of that edge rusher mix. Secondary also in flux. Newcomer C.J. Colden, who was signed from the Ottawa Red Blacks. He repped at field corner with the first team secondary. Rookie Lorando Johnson filled in for Gary Peters at the other corner. Peters sitting out as a veteran. TJ Lee and Ronald Kent also repped with the starting secondary.
TJ Lee and Gary Peters.
and
Honestly,
Gary just keep
what is
on.
it, 2008? Like, what is going on here? They just keep going.
They're taking a run at Ryan Phillips, Dante Marsh, and Corey Banks in terms of who can be together in that secondary for the longest. Baseball, where the Jays take 2 of 3 from the Angels, losing only to Jose Soriano, who's been the best pitcher in baseball this year. Eric Lauer got shelled yesterday, allowing 6 runs over 5 relief innings. But therein lies the problem as he sees it. quote, I don't know what else to say. I've told you guys multiple times I can't pitch after an opener. John continues to put me in these situations despite that.
Pretty
Well,
vocal.
I
Like,
mean, technically, he was the third pitcher up yesterday, and if he can't pitch as an opener, that means he can't pitch in relief either. He's been one of the worst pitchers in the American League this season. These could be the last days of Eric Lauer, despite how good he was last year in stabilizing, saving that rotation when they got injuries in the second half. Yariel Rodriguez, who has been up with the Jays for the last couple of years, has been called up. They start a set with Tampa Bay tomorrow. One of the two teams alongside the Yankees they're chasing atop that American League.
how good was Trey Savage, though?
It was quite good.
Oh,
Unfortunately, he threw a lot of pitches through 4 innings and
Yes.
wasn't able to come out and pitch the fifth after, I think it was 87 pitches.
the problem when you strike everybody out, like
Going
it does
deep in
take up
counts.
pitches.
Yep. Mariners dropped 2 of 3 to the Shy Sox. They begin a 4-game set at Houston, so AL West rival tonight. And a significant trade Saturday in baseball with a couple of Canadian connections. San Francisco sends 2-time Gold Glove catcher Patrick Bailey to Cleveland in return for left-handed pitcher Matt Tugboat Wilkinson, the hefty lefty from Ladner, who took the minors by storm a couple of years ago and pitched for Canada at the World Baseball Classic. I think a little bit of good news, bad news for Wilkinson. Cleveland is well known as a terrific organization when it comes to the development of young pitchers, and Wilkinson has already benefited from that. But stands to reason there might be more opportunity coming up here in San Francisco, who have been dreadful in the National League West, and that looks every bit like a rebuild trade from the Giants. To make room for Bailey,
Yeah, another Canadian.
the Guardians demoted catcher Bo Naylor, the Canadian brother of Josh Naylor, of course, Mariners' first baseman.
And the better of the two Nailers at the World Baseball Classic, it should be mentioned. He was
Well,
better than Josh.
Bo has 1,000 Major League at-bats under his belt, so it's very rare to see a guy with that kind of run.
But when you can't get
Demoted.
above the Mendoza line.
He was hitting a $143 this year. You can't have that.
And he was like a $195 last year. Like, yeah, I know slugging percentage is very, and on base is very
Yeah.
big, and batting average is diminished, but that is just too bad.
It's a little too, it's beyond the pale.
Yes.
Vancouver Canadians lose 4 of 6 down in Eugene against the Emeralds. They're happy for the homecoming that starts tomorrow at historic Nat Bailey Stadium. Seas open a 6-game set against Everett. That's the Mariners Farm Club tomorrow. Arjun Namala will not be there. He has been promoted to AA. He is simply in the graphic. 7 p.m. starts Tuesday through Thursday. 1 p.m. starts Friday through Sunday. Remember, Tuesday also 75-cent hot dog night. I believe I heard Tyler Zickel say they went through 4,000 or 5,000 hot dogs last Tuesday, or a couple of Tuesdays. Basically, everybody in the ballpark plus eats a hot dog.
It's only going to ramp up as
Yeah.
the weather improves here, too.
Also tomorrow, Capilano's pennant giveaway. Thursday is First Responders Appreciation Night at the Nat. Get your tickets 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. And sad news from the world of baseball as former Jays and Atlanta manager Bobby Cox passes away at age 84. He skippered the Jays for 4 seasons, including their first postseason performance in 1985 before heading to Atlanta and managing them to blank 14 consecutive NL East titles and the 1995 World Series. They were an absolute juggernaut. They just dominated baseball. They just didn't win the big one often.
And he allowed the Jays to win a big one off of them.
That's correct. He
So,
managed against, there
gracious
he
in
is,
that
Cito
regard.
Gaston, one of his proteges on that Jays staff. Passes away the same week as Ted Turner, too. For people of a certain vintage, Canadian cable packages began carrying TBS, Superstation TBS, which was owned by Turner and broadcast a lot of the Atlanta games. And so you could sit at home, you could watch the Jays, you could watch the Expos when they were on, but you could also watch Atlanta on TBS Superstation and the Cubs on WGN.
WGN
Which
and TBS.
also started getting carriage
Yeah.
in Canada. Blake and I were reminiscing about Bobby Cox. His ejection rate was 3-point-something%. So
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
it was up there.
Yeah.
He maybe wasn't Lou Piniella in terms of umpire arguing and getting ejected. Like Lou was generational in that regard. If Lou was Connor McDavid, Bobby Cox was Jack Eichel on that score.
Who's the legendary Yankees manager? I'm losing my
Oh,
mind.
Billy Martin.
Billy Martin.
Yeah. Billy Martin, Earl Weaver, they're sort of in that Lou Piniella bracket.
Yes.
Bobby maybe a notch
Solid career,
below.
though.
Yes.
Solid career. 40
Yes.
goal
Oh,
scorer.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe even 50 in some years. Results of the poll question from Friday. We asked you, who do you want as Canucks general manager, Evan Gould or Ryan Johnson? And the winner is
Oh, Evan Gold.
Ryan Johnson.
No, W. Okay.
54%. I thought it would be higher for RJ. I thought he was a little more popular than that. Shafeen, new blood. RJ has the stank of the old regime. Mulder says, I'll take Ryan Johnson, please. No more Boston cast-offs. Besides, I can't trust the haircut and the beady eyes on Gold.
Some people thought that the two photos that we chose made Evan Gold look like a supervillain and Ryan Johnson the agent assigned to take him down. It's kind of true. That's exactly what that looks like.
A lot of you on both. A lot of you have concoctions of one of them as a POHO, president of hockey operations, one of them as a GM. And Sam Booksy says, I don't care. I'm just happy it's not Dorian, Bergevin, or Tree Living. Yes. Here are some omissions from Friday's show and beyond. SFU, we mentioned they've been accepted to Canada West if they choose to return. Of course, they don't have a football program right now, but varsity athletics are welcome to compete against their Canadian counterparts in Canada West. You asked me if there are any SFU programs still playing NCAA or NAIA. What can you tell me there?
I can only tell you what I found in their release in November when that whole process started. And it said that it would be the deletion of the golf, softball, and outdoor track teams entirely. Now,
Yeah,
they don't have to. Like UBC has those as for instance golf playing in NAIA. Like you can split off.
yeah, that's fair.
But SFU sounds like they want to save the money and maybe kibosh those sports. Not good.
No, as Farhan tweeted last week, they are not serious about varsity athletics right now. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on May, those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.